Hi, welcome to Tent Talk, the Farmers Market podcast. This is the show all about farmers markets. Whether you're a farmers market manager, a farmer, or a food producer selling at farmers markets, or just a curious farmers market shopper, this is the podcast for you. Our guest this week is Lisa Kivirist, author, farmer, and advocate for women in sustainable agriculture. In this episode, Lisa shares her passion for cottage food laws, how the community of female farming is growing, and the value of conferences. Hi, I'm your host, Bridget Myers. I've spent years as an on-site farmers market manager, and I've done it all from pulling permits to vetting vendors.
I'm another one of your hosts, Justine Marzoni-Mead, farmers market vendor, hot sauce maker, and event facilitator for the Intense Conference.
And I'm Kat Fields-White, director of San Diego Markets, where I'm still an active farmers market manager, and founder of Intense Business, where we introduce the concept that passion should meet profit.
Welcome back to Tent Talk. On today's episode, our guest is Lisa Kivirist. Lisa is a national advocate for women in sustainable agriculture, and in 2009 founded the award-winning In Her Boots project for the Midwest Organic Sustainable Education Service, or MOSES, a project she continues to lead that champions female farmers and food-based entrepreneurs. She also facilitates the largest women farmer-led annual event in the nation. In addition, Lisa has authored various books, most notably Soil Sisters, a toolkit for women farmers, in which she compiled advice and resources from over 100 women in sustainable agriculture. For all these accomplishments, it's no mystery why In Business magazine recognized Lisa as a woman of industry for her leadership in growing the women in sustainable agriculture movement.
Oh, the Madison Market, the one on the square.
The county one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I went this
Well,
summer.
it was summer. Oh, because they're not indoors, but
it was in June.
yeah,
It was beautiful.
It's fun.
Yeah.
It's a tough one though because it's more of a tourist thing. I bet you didn't buy a roast.
I did not buy a roast, but I bought a bunch of jam and I bought like 3 different hot sauces.
Yeah. That kind of stuff's selling.
Yeah.
It's like the produce and the meat vendors.
We
like
bought
meat
some
guys.
pickles. We bought a lot of stuff.
But the point, there's just so many people that like people
Well, so that's how
complain,
little
but
it
it's
is.
like, look, you're doing way, but you know,
I think
just
I bought cheese curds too.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Little Italy's like that. There's a big tourist population, but it's also just a numbers game. There's so many humans there.
it's
that everybody
numbers.
sells
That's
stuff.
what we,
Yeah.
and that's what we just don't have in the rural areas. So get enough people
Yeah.
that you would sell enough, and then people do the math. But yeah, we've done a handful of more like the holiday one-shot winter markets. Those have been kind of fun.
Yeah.
Actually, in Madison, a number of folks, particularly like more like specialty items, the sauces or baked goods, are going to these makers fairs.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's more like the Etsy crowd, and they're finding
Justine makes hot sauces.
people are willing to pay a fairer price,
They're
and
like,
they
how
appreciate.
much? And like $10. Like, only $10? Cool. Okay.
Great.
Because there it's not a grocery item, it's a gift item.
Yeah,
Gifts you can charge more.
Luxury
That's
item.
right. This is a
Totally.
wedding hot sauce. It's $30.
Special edition.
Price increase.
So are you producing under California's cottage food, or are you just? In
I
the
don't do
kitchen?
cottage food. We have a commercial kitchen, and then we also have a co-packer for some of our products.
Gotcha.
So,
Yeah.
we.
Which part turn on mic?
Yeah.
It's we're rolling.
Oh, we're rolling.
I should
Okay,
have told
thank
you,
you.
but
Okay, good.
I wanted to
That's
get
all
our
right.
like
Cool.
pre-interview banter. Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll talk
Yeah.
about like cottage
Yeah.
food stuff in a minute. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Okay.
All right, should
Well,
we just-
welcome.
Yes,
Thanks
welcome.
for
Hey,
coming.
thank you.
you.
Yeah. So you're looking at a national audience, right? And then under the farmers market
The whole intense
tent
thing.
still.
Yeah,
Okay.
It's called Tent Talk. So it's all. It's
No, I
still,
listen now.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, it's good.
I love the last one with Gail Myers, and you.
yeah, that was today's.
Yeah. I met her like right when she was starting Farms to Grow, like a long time ago. I haven't seen her, so
funny.
She's
I know her,
really
so
cool.
I have to catch up.
Yeah, she was
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, she was awesome.
Yep.
All right, we'll just kind of jump into some background stuff though. If you want to just tell us, like, how did you get started in, like, what's your background and what led you to become interested in agriculture? The wide world.
Did you grow up in a farm family?
Yeah.
Or?
No, I didn't. I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago, first generation immigrant daughter. So I grew up in a real food focused family with gardens, but also a very new American family. And we can buy this now. That's progress, right? So I had very much that message and very much the go to college, get a job in a cubicle with a paycheck message, and did that for a little bit in Chicago. And early on realized this is just not for me, but didn't know what was out there. And honestly, in the beginning, was escaping to Wisconsin from Chicago for the weekend. Typical tourist stuff, camping, biking. I was not an outdoors kid or anything like that, or even went to rural areas regularly. However, something about that just clicked, and loved it, and loved the skies, and in our case, rolling green hills and cows. And at the time, my husband and I were both working at the same agency in Chicago, and we're both in our own way going through this, going, wait a minute, could we move to a farm? And this was now 23 years ago, so it was pre-internet, pre a lot of the good resources we have out here. Yeah. So we quit and left and said, let's try, make a go of it. And it was back in the day, too, when you could pay off student loans reasonably, and we could muster enough for, it wasn't that long ago, but you could muster enough for down payment and get the bank to pat you on the head thinking that you still had those JOBs, and said, all right, so that's what started the journey, and it's been a learning journey ever since. So part of our story on the farm at In Serendipity is diversification, because we didn't know how to grow anything when we moved there. So it forced us to diversify. But our goal has always been to generate our income on farm, but not necessarily all through farming, and keeping our expenses low. So my mom still asks, how can you make a living in the middle of nowhere? The question is, how can we live on what we make? So that's been a big part of our journey, is raising your own food, in our case, raising our own power, and keeping those expenses low so that you have the freedom to do what you want on the farm.
Yeah, a little more room. What kind of things are you doing on the farm?
We raise diversified vegetables. So a little bit of everything, a lot of garlic, a lot of, this past year, a heck of a lot of winter squash. That wasn't quite the plan, but it was exceptionally abundant. We have some in our suitcase here. But so we do that, and then we run the farm on renewable energy up until this summer on wind, and then we have switched now exclusively to solar. So we do a lot of that, and then we have the bed and breakfast on farm, and do between all that writing and educational work in the ag scene, and I particularly work in the women in ag field.
Yeah, and you find, so what are some of the issues that women in ag, and they're changing, but how long have you been involved in kind of that side?
I really jumped in 10 years ago now, when we started with Moses, the Midwest Organic Sustainable Education Service, which is really our organic farming informational hub in the Midwest, our In Her Boots project, which is, and still is, a specific ongoing program working with particularly beginning women farmers, so resource connection, networking, that sort of thing. And while you keep hearing about this growth of new women farmers, right, and this 20% growth over the last 20 years, and it's all good, it's kind of funny because women raising food and feeding their families and communities is the oldest thing, right?
That's where it started,
modern agriculture, but it really, since the 70s, women farmers in particular, but women in general, have finally been recognized politically, economically, in ways that have changed the field. And it's interesting talking to younger beginning farmers, women farmers, because that was the 70s, I mean, it wasn't that long ago. People think it's hundreds of years ago or something. It's like, no. So that has definitely been the impetus. Plus, the growth of the organic and local food movement, and women drawn to more community-focused operations, smaller scale operations that steward the land, really is propelling this new movement. Mm-hmm. So, but to your question, Kat, it's not like, I always struggle with this in women farmer training work. It's not like we need the How to Grow Garlic workshop. That's covered. There's lots of great ag resources out there for the practical, but it's those things that aren't covered in between the lines that, particularly when we gather groups of women for trainings, for networking, for a potluck, things come out, information's shared. There's research on that too, that not just women farmers, but women in general learn best from each other.
Right.
And not being lectured to, not being lectured by the male authority. It does not work. So we do a lot within that of connecting women and therefore connecting information.
Yeah. Well, I know you were here for the National Farmers Union Women's Conference.
Yeah.
And so Lisa put together a gathering of people from the conference and also people from our community that are involved in women in ag. And yeah, it was so productive. I mean, learning things and encouraging each other. And the one woman who had been at the conference who was running for office and is really involved in plate to politics.
Yeah, Chris Marion, she's in my district. She's my farm hood.
You're really pushing women, and particularly women in ag, to get into running for public office so that you can help change things. And,
that's huge, especially on the local level. We went from 0 to 3 and growing women farmers on our county board. And I live in a very conventional, traditional ag area of Wisconsin. Cows, corn, soybean, alfalfa. You know, it would shocks people locally still to know that there's this movement of women running small organic operations where we are. So getting more of that visible and having more women at the decision-making plate on all accounts we need. But
yeah, really helpful. We had, so your book, Soil Sisters, do you also have kind of an organization that's called under the Soil Sisters?
We have an event and a growing network which we're hoping to be able to expand. So where I am in southwest Wisconsin, Greene County, about an hour south of Madison, when I started with Moses about 10 years ago, getting together regularly a group of women farmers. But women really broadly under the sustainability tent, so sharing those values of community and conservation, so home gardeners, chefs, and we have consistently kept meeting and getting together for potlucks, and it's amazing what women can get done, over food and wine, right? And a lot of things have grown from that, and one of them is this Soil Sisters event. So we host now, heading into our 7th year, the first weekend in August, Soil Sisters, a celebration of Wisconsin farms and rural life. So this has grown now to one, if not the largest women farmer-led event of its kind. So we have over 30 on-farm workshops and culinary events and tours, but celebrating women-owned farms and really opening the barn doors to the public to get people out, to get kids out, to get young women out, and help celebrate that. But this idea, the event stemmed from women knowing each other in areas, and that's where we're getting a lot of good feedback of, hey, I want to organize by me, and we're hoping to get some more formal legs behind that this year.
So maybe get into sort of a chapter program. To
but that's it. It doesn't take much. It just takes, but it takes consistency, and we're all busy, and especially in rural areas, I think we're only going to drive so far. So it's kind of your 1 hour radius is what we tend to work with, But then things happen. And then to your point with leadership, when you know each other and things come up and there's a spot open on the township board or the school board, hey, you know somebody. And it's statistically proven that, not just in the ag world, but in the world period of women running for office, is that women need to be asked. And they even tracked it like 7 times. You should run for office. You should run for this position, where men are just more likely to stay. I'm going to do this. And so knowing each other gives us more opportunity to ask, and that's only going to help.
Giving each other permission.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a funny thing.
You got somebody's back, exactly.
Yeah.
And then you've had practical things that have come out of that too. I remember being at, I think, a talk that you were giving, and there was somebody there that made farm work clothes designed for women's bodies.
Oh yeah,
because you forget
that. No, it's like intro to the obvious, right?
Yeah.
But it's not. There's a story in the Soil Sisters book of green heron tools out in Pennsylvania. Right. But there's clothing companies too, but the tools is really interesting because that's fundamental ergonomics. These 2 women, Ann Adams and Liz Brenzinger, started a farm. Ann's son was a chef at the time in Philadelphia, kind of pre-local food movement, couldn't find a good food source regularly. And like any mom, your kid needs something, start a farm, right?
Start a farm.
So the farm was going well, and that wasn't the issue, but their physical health wasn't the issue, and that they're both in shape. They both knew ergonomics. One was a nurse, but they were realizing the tools they were using just weren't right for their body.
Yeah.
And they said, all right, well, we're going to research what are tools out there for women farmers specifically and put them in a catalog because somebody else is looking for them, right? Mm-hmm. Well, they found nothing for like basic hand tools we're talking, much less, obviously not a tractor or something larger. And that's what got them to reinvent Green Heron Farm as Green Heron Tools, which it's a larger project now in partnership with Penn State and doing research on both what women farmers want and, more importantly, what ergonomically works with their body, right? Because if we're going to farm, that's our most important tool. And it's interesting. The first thing women farmers wanted was a shovel that worked. And they came out with this Her shovel a couple years ago now. And it comes in 3 different sizes because women, we vary in size. We carry, it's not a question of right, wrong, or bad, good, or strong, weak. It's just we're different, right, than men. And so we carry our weight in our lower half of our body, whereas men were more likely to carry in our upper half of their bodies. So it's just how tools work. So yeah. But it's an interesting point because as the number of women farmers grow, there's opportunity for new businesses like Green Hair Tools to pop up to specifically help support women farmers that I think is really exciting. And if women farmers see barriers like Ann and Liz, address them too, because there are other women hitting the same walls that your work will really help positively affect.
Well, and agriculture is something that touches all of us, and so even people that are not necessarily interested in being out there in the dirt and using her shovels, there's a lot of work available in agriculture.
You bet.
So we're seeing some people that are just passionate about the food system get into farming, but not necessarily as a farmer per se. Maybe it's an extension agent, or maybe it's somebody that's doing data collection and helping us figure out what works best.
And shoppers, educated shoppers at market.
Yeah,
we need those. Bottom line.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But when you think about it, women are and truly can even more drive food system change, because if the number of farmers, the number of women farmers are growing, and still women across all economic levels control household spending and decide where money's going and decide, I want to go to the farmer's market. I want to spend money here. I want to know my farmer. I want to know my woman farmer. That's a real game changer.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Very cool. I wanted to ask you about cottage food laws, and we were chatting about this before, and I don't operate under cottage food laws just because I make like an acidified food product, and it would be really tough to do that. Also, we have a cat at home. But,
no cats.
Okay, that's always my question as a market manager when somebody comes in with a cottage food product. It's like, do you have a cat? Hanging out on your kitchen
Was
counter?
it on your counter?
Because if you're not in an inspected kitchen, nobody ever knows.
But I know you have a really interesting story about kind of how you were involved in changing some cottage food laws, and I was wondering if you could just kind of share that story with our listeners.
Sure. So I'm rather obsessed with cottage food law and opportunities. Specifically in 2010, back in Wisconsin, we passed what we call our pickle bill, which ironically legalized high-acid foods. These laws are state-specific and quirky. I mean, if you read them across the board, they're basically, it's fundamentally states' rights at its finest. It's states interpreting the food code, but it's
you would
crazy
think that,
funny.
Totally.
Totally.
Acidification is the same. Science is the same in California and Wisconsin, right?
Well, you'd think. So that's what first turned me on to this, and I didn't even know it was feasible to do something in your home kitchen, and what else can you do? And quickly learned every other state except Wisconsin and New Jersey, you could sell your, what they call non-hazardous baked goods. So the safer baked goods, things that don't need refrigeration is the easy way to explain it, but there's a science to the moisture behind it. So things that could sit out at a market all day and be fine.
Yeah.
And here it was, I have a licensed bed and breakfast. I'm state inspected. I have a home kitchen. That's kind of the point, is you can get this up and running. And I could legally serve you muffins, but I can't sell you the same muffins for health reasons. I was losing money. I could sell my muffins, plus that was just wrong. So
you can get people sick if they don't pay you.
Right.
Yeah. Pay you.
Yeah.
It made no sense. So on one level, that got me active with Wisconsin and trying to change this. And secondly, it got me obsessed with opportunity nationally because this was so new still. It's like we were talking about women farmers. It's the newest, oldest thing, right? Making bread in your home kitchen and selling it to your neighbor is like the oldest form of commerce ever. Yet, because of, in some cases, good food regulations involving meat and child labor, I'm all for it. We kind of over-regulated, I'd argue, over the last 100 years. So this is a good movement to go back to that pure local commerce. So that's what prompted my husband John and I to write the Homemade for Sale book to be a resource nationally. While working at home in Wisconsin, we, for 3 years, tried to get what we called the cookie bill passed. And it's politics at its finest, and passing the Senate unanimously multiple times and not getting on the agenda for a vote in the House ever because our Speaker of our House he doesn't like it. And he happens to get donations from the Wisconsin Bakers Association. You can see this is multi-layered, longer story, but then we realized we have 3 branches of government. So we took it to the judicial branch and filed a lawsuit against the state of Wisconsin. This would have been in January of 2016 on behalf of this ban, to lift the ban on the sale of home baked goods. It was a constitutional case. So in our state's constitution, anyone's state's constitution, there's something that says you as a citizen of your state have the right to earn an honest livelihood, and the government doesn't have a right to make arbitrary restrictions. So that was our case. And fortunately, we had great representation from the Institute for Justice, which is a nonprofit law firm that takes on these cases of crazy regulation, not just food. I mean, there are crazy regulations. They have a lot of work that needs to be done. So in October of 2017, after various layers of legal wrangling, the judge officially ruled in our favor that this is unconstitutional. So now we're in this quirky situation in Wisconsin where we have a judge's ruling that lifts the ban on the sale of baked goods. So anybody can legally bake, but we do not have a law. Because remember that other thing? That guy's still there. He's not putting on the agenda, and he's pissed.
Now you've really pissed him off. Yeah.
So yeah, it's a kind of a renegade situation, legally renegade, if you will. So the great news is we have had hundreds of new businesses pop up in the last year.
Yeah.
And some data just came out specific on Wisconsin baking, but this could be applicable throughout the state of who's doing this. And this is beyond, obviously, just farmers, but people who are running cottage food bake businesses, primarily women, side businesses, but many have dreams to go bigger. And many are stay-at-home moms who this is an economic, even though it's not huge amounts of money, $1,000 here and there, it's helping the bottom line. And importantly, it's empowerment. You're going from hobbyists who love to bake and gave stuff away. People said, oh, this is great, you should sell it, to food entrepreneur. That's huge, and that can really take things in different directions. So the net with cottage food laws nationally is it's a grassroots movement. Whenever any of these laws came into place, it was led by somebody saying, hey, I want to blank, and calling their representative. And whenever the laws change, they have always expanded. So California is a great example. You've had, I think, 3 different versions of it over the years.
And we just recently had a new bill. I know that you're concerned about it, but it sounds similar. Is now people can just
food.
For
Certain
cooked
amount of
food,
cooked
people
food.
can sell on the street. Which again, it's
the
a
Homemade Food
it's
Act,
complex, especially
that's a different
from a farmers
level.
market perspective. But it is
actually,
removing another barrier to entry in terms of starting your own business or.
Yeah, and that was all really centered around MacArthur Park in LA and them being not open to giving the vendors there, the tamale carts and things, any kind of way to get legal. And so I understand the impetus behind it. And when you say I'm concerned, my question is this. If you can make your food in a home kitchen without a 3-compartment sink and without a regulated refrigeration system, all good. Apparently, we now believe that that will not kill people. Why do our small restaurants have to have 3-compartment sinks and regulated refrigeration systems? I mean, it either is creating an issue where it could kill people or it's not. I'm just saying, why not level the playing field and make everybody operate under the same health codes?
Yeah.
Cooked and served food is a different category entirely. I'm with you there. And cottage food is different in that it is purely the safe foods. It's not food service. You're not slicing cakes and putting them on a plate, all that sort of stuff. So it's interesting to see some of these things happening. And some states, too, now are passing what's loosely being called Food Freedom Acts. Nevada did and Wyoming did, where I'm oversimplifying, and these are more farmer-focused, but basically in Wyoming, if I lived in Wyoming with my farm, I could, in theory, do whatever I wanted food-related for under $5,000 gross. So I'd need a sign saying this, but if I wanted to have a dinner and invite people and charge them, I could do that. And those are interesting to watch, both from a food safety perspective and an economic engine, because particularly in rural areas, there's not a lot of places to eat, but people want to visit. They want to go on farms. And how could
so many
this
cultures
blend?
you have you go to Cuba and all the restaurants are in somebody's living room, and different cultures have always had small food facilities.
It's hard with cottage food because that question comes up a lot. It's like, well, how can you trust somebody's kitchen? And then it immediately gets personal. You don't want to go there, right? Because my immediate answer, which is true, is it's your choice. Do you know if you
that's
you don't
my thing. Informed consent.
Tell me
kind of thing.
everything's shrink wrapped in the industrial supermarket. You know who did. That's about as far away from knowing who baked it as possible. And if you don't trust me or my kitchen or anything like that, don't buy it. Do you know? But on the flip side, my personal answer to that too is, I trust people's kitchens. It's where they serve their family and their friends. And it's that inherent belief that our society, unfortunately, I feel has, where, we trust regulations and government more than we trust our neighbors.
Right.
And that, some neighbors you might not trust their kitchen. I get that. But you have to know your neighbor before you do that. Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's this blind faith in government regulations that scares me, that anything shrink wrapped is better. We've seen, obviously, unfortunately, instances of that where it's clearly not the case.
But so many regulations too are motivated by one person got sick, so we're gonna way overregulate what the possibility is that caused that. And so they just go to the lowest common denominator, and raw milk.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's consumer choice, and it's consumers educating themselves. Something I always have fun, especially out here in California, because at the markets I love seeing new cottage food businesses, and I think it's great when people go and can identify and support them. But people always the vendors question me like I'm from the health department. I'm like, are you a cottage food producer? And I'm like, why do you want to know? I'm like, no, I'm on your side. I want to buy your stuff. It's what you're doing is great. But there's still, people feeling suspect. But no, champion it and let people know. I always say with cottage food producers, hey, bring pictures of your kitchen. It's the same thing as your farm. Show people where this is made.
Yeah, that's a really good idea.
I know people are very kind of tiptoeing around it here, I feel, in California, because we way overregulate, just even more than what's happening nationally. And people never know, is it something that you're going to like? Who are you working with? Am I going to get in trouble? Because it's just so, it is new too here. The
Right, it keeps changing. It's kind of a moving target.
2013 I think is when it first passed here. So
it's really new. Most of the laws nationally even started in 2008 with the Great Recession in a good way, with forward-thinking states saying, hey, what could we do to help support small-scale business upstarts versus this whole creating jobs for everybody idea. And a lot of states, I would give California a lot of credit. You may feel regulated, but at least the regulations are thought out, you know, and there's opportunity and there's things happening. Some states like Arizona, I think, have done a tremendous job of utilizing cottage food businesses for people with disabilities who need to be home. And how can we help you run a home-based business? So there's all kinds of tangents to it, but it's again helping people get on that quicker food entrepreneur on-ramp. And most cottage food businesses stay cottage food. They come and go. They may sell something at the holidays, but there are great stories of people, farmers, who created something that is going so well that they outgrew either their state's gross sales cap or their family kicked them out of their home kitchen. And now they're commercial, but they would never be there without those training wheels of the cottage food startup days.
I think, didn't Mush start as cottage food?
Yeah, Mush started cottage food, and Bump. We've had farmers market vendors that have started as cottage food and did it for a while and got their bearings, and then grew into enormous
Mush went
companies.
on Shark Tank and made a deal with Mark Cuban, and now they're in retail.
Really? Oh, fantastic!
Yeah, Bump has a coffee house now, and it's those stories are really great, because I don't think who knows, but it seems to be that they wouldn't really even start unless they could have started on that scale, being at home, eased in, they're comfortable, they had a shelf-stable product and all that. So it was,
especially for farmers in rural areas. In urban areas, with the growth of shared kitchens and commercial community kitchen space, that's great. For a lot of places that can be an easy on-ramp to go wholesale and commercial. But if you're outside of metro areas, they're not economically viable, and to be driving so many hours. So it's a good option.
It's a good option, and just to kind of build and give opportunities for more additional sales. Because our farmers, they can't even sell T-shirts with their farm name on it, and they can't sell wreaths at the holidays, So they're looking at other ways that they can kind of monetize being at the farmers markets, can we do jam? Can we do,
Yeah, 'cause
really dried?
we're really limited on value-added items.
They can't make pies and things like that here. We're kind of really restrictive on the farmers, so it's nice to have those cottage food options where they can do stuff in a kitchen at their farm and then sell at the market.
So you spend a lot of time with Moses and I think you've spoken at National Farmers Union and other places. Do you do a lot of conferences during the year?
Just this time of year.
Just this time of year, it seems like. Oh,
It's that conference time of year. Yeah, the Moses conference is always the end of February, and that is, as Moses likes to call, the largest organic gathering in the known galaxy. So we get 3,500 Midwest farmers primarily with spring fever. So it's crazy fun.
Wow.
But then with our In Her Boots project, we do workshops on women-owned farms throughout the summer when folks would want to see some things. So yeah, we're much more seasonally based where I am in Wisconsin, which is nice because it gives a little bit of an ebb and flow where...
But then you're out here for National Farmers Union.
Yeah, I'll come to California anytime. I love coming out to California because I know you people say it about trends on the coast, but you do see it. I see it when I come to the markets here, and I really encourage Midwest farmers to come out to California. It's a business trip, go visit, because you see things here that just haven't made it to the Midwest market yet. I mean, I remember at the markets, I see the sprouted grains, and those kinds of breads, which I'm curious about. They're just not as prevalent in the Midwest yet, or even things that people are growing or processing in ways that are new ideas. And that's what is so awesome about farmers markets. It's so collaborative, right? I mean, you can talk to farmers in a market and get ideas and take it home to your market, particularly another state. It's great, it's more power to you. So, it's great to see.
So do you try and stay pretty involved in conferences? Do you find that's valuable? You're encouraging other people
for
to
sure.
come,
Yeah. I conferences for farmers, it's interesting because this conversation came up at that National Farmers Union Women's Conference conferences are out of the box experiences for a lot of farmers because we're so used to being by ourselves.
Right.
And we even choose the farming lifestyle because we can be introverted and we like being outside by ourselves. And we forget that in conferences because it can be overwhelming. It's just like so much all at once. But on the flip side, we need that community too. So I think it kind of goes to extremes. Either we're by ourselves in the field or we love being with a couple hundred kindred spirits. Especially at this time of year, it's real rejuvenating, and you just can't beat gathering farmers together for that information exchange, particularly women farmers. You definitely, there's an instant intimacy, I think, when women get together in particular. That sometimes these women-only conferences, or women-only, but women-targeted, are unique spaces, for safe spaces in that note.
Right, yeah, people really understand your issues. Yeah. What is your involvement with Moses exactly?
So I work for Moses and direct this In Her Boots project. So I'm not officially on staff or in the office, but work off our farm.
Right. Yeah, and you've been involved with them for a while, haven't you?
Yeah, we're heading into our 10th year with this project. So it started small and has grown, but we definitely keep interest in that, particularly as newer women come into the fold. The interesting thing, if you look into the statistics of new women farmers, what's driving the numbers is women midlife, women in their 50s, 60s, 40s, who had probably a whole other career and in various ways have always had this dream of, I want to start a farm, and finally get to that point in life where it's like, hey, if I'm going to do this, I need to do this. Sure. But it's an interesting, different set of challenges and opportunities. And so we do programming that works particularly with this encore farmer, I like to call it, of it's your encore chapter, and what are you doing with it? And so you may, for example, have business skills or marketing skills. You may have some financial resources to bring to it, but I'm not physically what I am at 50 as I was at 25. Yeah. It's things to think about. How do you want to plan your farm? What do you want to be growing? What do you see as transition, which would be happening sooner than later too? Yeah. So it's a different set of questions. But that said, there's so many inspiring examples of women who have creatively and strategically created their dream encore chapter, and they're all in, and it's beautiful. What we see a lot in the Midwest are the growth of farms that also serve food, so on-farm food service. I don't know if you've heard of these, like pizza farms are a big thing in Wisconsin and Minnesota. Yeah, all right, this is new, but it's coming. So basically, basically a farm serves pizza one night a week. And it's pizza. And pizza, I'm oversimplifying a bit because now we're talking health code, which is even more complicated than ag food code.
Course.
However, it generally works because you are selling one item. So kitchens, commercial kitchens, are dependent on what you're serving, right? So this idea of farm to table, and I'm going to serve something different every week. Well, you basically need a restaurant kitchen, and say take out your checkbook, take out your credit card. Right. That's a lot. Yeah. But pizza that's served hot, it's eaten immediately. The health department generally gets that. They're like, okay, so it's an easier point of entry. And it's pizza, which is affordable, and you get people out to the farm where they might not be
loved.
Totally. You can get funky with the toppings and things, but it brings people out to the farm who normally wouldn't be. Very, very family friendly. So you see those. It was interesting. 2-3 years ago, USA Today did an article on this growth of pizza farms, and at the time there were, I think, 5. 2 in Minnesota and 3 in Wisconsin, and now it was probably a good 20 in our general area.
So to identify as a pizza farm, you just need to be making pizza on the farm. You're not necessarily making mozzarella and growing basil.
No, it's not. It's interesting. It's interesting you ask that because it's there's not like any legal definition about pizza farms, but there's a marketing image behind it now, and people go out to a farm thinking the farm raised everything, and not perhaps everybody is. But that said, the good ones are committed. So in most success stories by me, they have been a CSA farm who has a dedicated base, is looking to diversify, has extra produce, right? You can use your blemished and your things you're not selling, and grows it. What's a challenge for several now is the pizza farm is making more money than the CSA was. And if you're a farmer at heart, you really want to be, getting those boxes, getting the tomatoes into your customers' kitchens, not selling pizza. But so it's almost an ethical dilemma, but it's growing. One thing to mention as a resource is Renewing the Countryside, which is a Minnesota-based nonprofit, but they do a lot of national work and do a lot in like agritourism education, has a program. We're rebooting it this year, so things are being revised, but it's called Come and Get It, What You Need to Know to Serve Food on Your Farm. And it's a free resource. We have a chapter specific for Minnesota and Wisconsin on state regs because those vary. But we'd love, if there's other partners, we'd love to do one on California. And then there's a section that has case studies on a lot of these stories I was just mentioning of how farms do it. With this idea that this is the only resource for farmers who are curious about on-farm food service. And if you read all this and you decide not to do it, great. Or you decide to have a potluck and have people out on your farm that way and not engage the health department, fabulous. Because it's an investment in any form of commercial kitchen. And I think farm to table dining is very romanticized right now, and everybody wants to do it. And
they'll pay much for it.
They'll pay it, exactly.
I was just at Grow Riverside last year, and one of the big dairy farmers up there has gotten into a program where he does a pumpkin patch on his farm, and he does pick, and he does festivals where he brings out a chef and they cook. And he was saying people won't pay the true cost of food. They still don't consider food something that's worth top dollar, but they will pay for experience. And so he says the most profitable acreage on his farm is his parking lot because it brings people to the farm, and they'll stay and they'll spend a lot of money to have a farm experience.
It's very true.
And that's a general trend, I'd say. I mean, as a millennial, in dining in general, you look at a lot of restaurants that are successful. They're really design focused. It's all about these immersive experiences of, you go in and there's all these. It's not even like, oh, let's go get a bite to eat and go to a movie. It's like you go to a restaurant and you're there for a long time, and it's this whole thing. So I think that this is another area where farms can, like you said, it may be hard for them to get that tomato purchased and get into the kitchen, but if somebody's going on to their farm and will eat dinner there, it's just kind of another way that farms can succeed and get people interested.
And that farm you were just talking about, Kat, is doing it very strategically and partnering with a chef, because that's a easier on-ramp for a farm to do on-farm food service, is to partner with a chef and have that chef do the cooking offsite, like basically a catered situation. Then you're not investing in a kitchen. I say the economics would be different, but you're still getting to the end goal that you want people to come eat in the farm. So,
Right, and the chef
that's
holds a lot of the permits, and
Yeah,
they've got their own marketing network, so it's it's a great cross marketing thing. Makes a lot of sense that way. Outstanding in the field, those the groups of
As a kind of
travel
more event
around and do the
companies,
big
they
events on the farms.
know how to do it.
Yeah.
But it's interesting too, because for somebody selling at a market to add some kind of agritourism component is something to think about, because you've got a customer base. They're coming out weekly to support you. They want to visit. And then if somebody comes and visits, that's where too you see the growth of farm stays, and with Airbnb being an easy way for folks to start with things like that, of the lodging on farm. There's more portals for folks to tap into that could be really great, just need to be strategic. It needs to...
JR Organics, who's a really popular farmer at our markets, just did their first farm dinner on the farm, and again had a chef come out and contribute. But it was so easy for them to sell tickets because all these people that talked to them at the farmers markets were really excited about coming out and seeing the farm.
Yeah. Get that customer base and kind of marry the two and kind of bring it in. And it's good to build a relationship and it brings them a little more intimacy to the relationship, I think. And you see like, oh yeah, you are at the farm, just translating from the farmer's market to going to the farm.
You
I
bet.
think it's good for the shoppers to, this is where my produce is grown.
And to remember that people are willing to pay for these experiences, like you're saying. At our Soil Sisters weekend, the first couple of years we started doing workshops, we wanted to have some that were kid-friendly. And Katie Dixon at Christensen Farm, down the road from me, was like, okay, I'm going to be a farmer for a day. And we wrote this pull on your muck boots and go on a hayride and pick eggs, and it was like $15 or something. It was meant for kids. She had all adults register. Then she got, it's like, okay, adults want to be a farmer. I mean, they were totally into it. They wanted to be a farmer for a day. So next round, she charged more and added a little bit. Okay, like these, some folks want to just have fun, but most of the folks signing up had, again, these inner dreams of, gosh, I'd love to do this someday. Whether or not they did, it's okay to create somebody's experience for an afternoon. They were very satisfied, and farmers walk away from somebody's going to pay me to do that? Yeah.
Us non-farmer folk, we find that charming to go on the farm. Kind of, play farmer, but I feel like that's a good experience again, like marry the relationship.
Totally.
So, yeah.
And people understand then where their food comes from, and they don't think the strawberries grow underground.
Things like that. We learn a little bit.
Okay, well, should we do our question of the week?
Yeah,
question of the day?
Let's do it.
Okay, so since you are involved in a lot of conferences, and you're in town for a conference, and we run a conference,
which I want to get to one of these days. We got to get our timing worked out.
We'll have to figure it out.
Yeah,
it sounds awesome.
But since conferences are in the air, our question for the week is kind of simple, and you could do whatever riff you want on it, but we figured we'd just ask, what was your favorite conference experience you've had recently or in the past, and what about it was special? What would you like to experience again?
Me gleaning from that.
Yeah.
You want to start, Kat? I'm going to go around.
Oh, and you know that I am a conference junkie.
Oh my gosh. Obsessed with
I
conferences.
love conferences. I especially like conferences where they're kind of retreats and you live on site at the conference. So we purposely don't put our conference inside a hotel because we want to be able to control food and beverage, because I've been to so many small farm conferences that had horrible hotel food being served to farmers.
I love that idea. Do you know, I brought that home to Wisconsin to try to see if we could remotely do that. I'm like, it's so cool, and then you don't have to worry about bad hotel food. Then it was brought to my attention that I want to do this in Wisconsin in February. The only time I could pull that off would be July when nobody would come. But I think that's great.
That's true. So I like the conferences where there's big tents in a field on a farm. I've been to a couple of those lately, and I went to Eat Retreat, and that actually was a great conference because it's a curated attendee. You have to apply to go to the conference, and then each attendee that goes has to present something. So it's the attendees themselves are creating the conference education, and that was a really, really special conference. I actually learned how to make caviar from giant salmon from a fisherman that came down from Alaska, and made porchetta with somebody else, and we made challah. So that was a great conference experience.
Yeah, cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
With your one thing jumped to mind quick with your question that I'm always challenged with conferences is the follow-up. Do you go and it's awesome and you've got all these ideas and people, and I've really made a concerted effort to be okay, Lisa, if you're going to go somewhere and invest, you need a couple tangible takeaways. And I've learned, like, just that week after the conference, there's always a couple people, even if it's just a thank you to follow up with, or some relationships, you got to get those words out and those resources on your list, or that folder just sits for me. It's just too much. But I'll share something. It's loosely under the conference tent, but it's something anybody could do. We've been doing in our area for a while, back to the women farmer scene, is we host an annual retreat for women farmers. So we call it our Soil Sisters Shake It Up retreat. And it's a Friday night in December. Yeah, it's definitely part slumber party. Right? But we've been doing this now for 3 years, and we probably get about 25 women. So it's cozy slumber party. And we focus more on that leadership side. So it's sort of reflection on the season, but a little bit more reflection on yourself. And we've done different activities, but it's some time and space to carve out of what are your goals for next year and what are your community goals and how can we cross-pollinate those. But more so, just carving 24 hours to be together is hugely impactful. Right. Just to get to know each other, and stories come out, and there's things that we just don't have the space to do. So that's my favorite conference. But again, it's not a whole lot of input to do. And something, wherever you are, once you start meeting and you get a group regularly together, to just designate one night, kick the boys out, and change the world.
That's right.
These ideas. Well, I haven't been to many conferences just because in that season of my life with little kids, it's kind of hard to get away, but I did teach yoga for many years before I transitioned to farmers markets, and there was lots of yoga conferences to go to, and I did go to one, and it was nice because with the yoga community too, we got together and was like very creatively inspiring, but then you got back home and you're like, okay, I'm just going to go teach my classes now. But there was a conference that I went to, and it was really practical, and they taught us about like the business side of yoga, which is not something that people do. And I'm finding with the farmers market community too, it's like we have this passion and we're creative people, but then it's like, okay, we also need to make money. So yoga teachers we find ourselves in that same thing where it's like, oh, we're really passionate and like, sure, I'll teach you yoga, but it's like your time is valuable. And so it was great. They did a really good session on the business part of it, and it wasn't money in your face, but it was, look, if you want to continue with your passion and your creativity, you really have to sustain this. So teaching us, things we can do with our time and doing like private, and I ended up going to teach at American Express, and I taught at Eddie Bauer, and it was like those teaching us, oh yeah, I can take this skill and I love my little classes, but it's really doing things where I can get a bigger check for that. So I kind of taking those skills to the Intense conference too and saying, oh yes, like you're great, your jam is amazing, you need to make it in these bigger sizes and sell to restaurants, and just kind of growing things that way. So that was a good conference experience.
So practical.
Very practical, yes. Taking that practical thing. Creativity, like a creative group, but also inviting that practical knowledge.
When we look for speakers at our conference, we always ask them, what is our listener going to be able to do with the information that you're giving us? What actionable results are you going to offer?
Because those inspiring talks are really great, and we need those too. You can't just go get lectured at a conference, but you need that inspiration. But also when you get home, like you were saying, what are you going to do when you get home? So, yeah.
Mine's like the opposite. I like to go see all my friends. It is great to like get information, but also my background was in academia, so I would go to a lot of these like academic conferences where I'd see like my grad school buddies or people that I taught with and haven't seen for a while, and I don't know, it's kind of just like a summer camp. You like hang out with your buddies and you share stories and you get to catch up on their lives, and but then it is always hard to say bye and then being able to follow up on those things. So but that's why I'm really excited about Intense, because now it's our 3rd year, and so there's these like little friends that these friends that we've made throughout the years, and I'm just like excited
well, it's
to
been
see
really
what
cool to see how some of our speakers and some of our attendees have formed friendships at the conference, and now Charlotte and Nick do things together, and Charlotte and I do things together, and different people are seeing each other. So that's kind of an exciting thing too. You learn stuff from those big ticket speakers, but you really learn things from each other.
Yeah.
And inspire each other, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. Cool. Well, Lisa, thank you so much
Oh,
for taking
thank
the time to
you.
come speak with us.
Yeah, come visit in Wisconsin.
Yeah, I love Wisconsin.
Anytime.
In the summer.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm a thin blood San Diego girl. I can't venture into snow right now.
We eat a lot of cheesy casseroles this time.
It gets me there
actually.
actually.
Now you press pretty
Work that angle with the food, comfort food.
for sure.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Hey, thanks for listening along. Please leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast and tell us how you like today's episode. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss the next one. And if you want more farmers market tips, you can subscribe to our weekly newsletter at intensebusiness.com and follow us on Instagram at intensebusiness. Remember, that's INTENTS business. The 2019 Intense Conference will be held in San Diego, February 24th through the 26th. It's coming right up, but you can still register today on our website, intensebusiness.com.
This podcast is produced by Intense Business, where passion meets profit. Today's episode was recorded and edited by Justine Marzoni Mead. Original music by David Mead. Special thanks to our guest, Lisa Kivirist, in San Diego Markets.